Hey, this is Rich. Today, Mark and I are going to talk about changing your mind, and we accidentally got into talking about slavery. I was encouraged Sunday, we could start there, just several people speaking up during the teaching, people staying after, except for you and Valerie, but other good people stayed after, and
we're working on that, trying to be better.
Anyway, you guys were going pretty. You guys were going pretty quick, but people were staying after. That was a joke, not.
Yeah, I get it. I get jokes.
Valerie might hear that. I don't know. Valerie was kidding. I love you. People were staying after and actually really caring for each other. It was visiting, but also like there were some hard things. And for me, sometimes like in a regular church, the preacher stands in the back, and there's like a lot of people.
Yeah. They shake hands as they.
Well, and more.
Yeah.
But like I had, I think five people at least who I did a, semi-serious, serious conversations with, which for some people that's the time that I have with them.
Yeah.
And I'd be glad. I mean, I'm available if you're hearing this. I'm available for more time than that. But
I think it's cool.
Yeah, and to me, it's a measure of what is the church, or, that happened that day. I would say it happens more, but I would like for it to happen more, to have people kind of lingering to care, to build one another up, and then people letting me hear where they're at and connect with them.
That was kind of but that could be a kind of a hard teaching this week, Sunday, right?
Yeah, it was hard.
Yeah.
I found out even more afterwards after I got some debriefings from people because of what they're actually going through. We talked about, if you're listening to this, we talked about Ephesians 5:21 to 28, I think, submit to each other out of reverence for Christ, and then wives submitting to their husbands, and husbands loving their wives, giving themselves up for her. And you could tell it's a little bit heavy. The things that people said during the teaching time were good and helpful, but then the things they said after the teaching time on side conversations were way harder.
Oh, okay.
And so it would be inappropriate or uncomfortable to say, well, how do I follow my husband when he's leading in a bad direction? Like,
no, absolutely.
But like my husband, is leading in a bad direction. Or how do you follow a husband who isn't a Christian or has lost their way in their faith completely and all that kind of stuff? So
yeah, well, that's a really good question.
Well, and also good that the side conversations happen. And then we came home. I had a really good morning, but we came home and Jenny was so heavy from having some conversations. And then we had to deal with that heaviness of like...
Yeah, he's not saying to follow your husband off a cliff, right? Not into sin.
It doesn't seem like it could be. I mean, the language is, you could certainly use it that way if you...
No, as your husband submits himself to Christ?
Sure, yeah. But it also says submit to your husband in everything. And so if you're trying to clobber, which the Bible has been used for about 2,000 years to clobber people sometimes. So we have to use it as a scalpel and not as a hammer all the time. And so to say, well, if you're, both of us, if someone came and said, hey, he's beating me up, and we say, well, let's get you somewhere else and see what we can do. But we're not going to say, well, submit to him and beat him.
Oh, no. Yeah, absolutely not. No.
But it's a little difficult too, because our leader was beaten, right? So we do have this idea, and I'm not going on the other side of this. I'm saying, but suffering is part of following. If you start beating me up, Mark, I'm going to probably do something about that. I'm probably going to say, well, we're not doing this anymore. But there is something about suffering that is part of our lives, and so we have to. I don't know. All this stuff is.
Yeah, I mean, though.
There's so much there.
But he endured that beating for our salvation.
Right. What about Paul? Paul suffered quite a bit too.
Yeah.
Well, just to be clear, I'm not saying that the suffering that an abused person
No.
is what God wants for us.
Yeah.
I am saying that suffering is part of all of our lives. In fact, to love someone is to suffer.
Yeah.
Right. Just put one of our sons, on a plane the other day, and
Okay.
the way you feel about that, and
Yeah.
see you in May or something, there's some suffering there.
Yeah.
There's also suffering for when the relationship you thought was, boy, the best thing ever is now
not.
you feel like you're drowning.
Yeah.
So, anyway, so what was I talking about? Just that Sunday was
hard. It was a hard message.
It was hard, but for me, it was mostly good. As far as I think I love this too, because I teach through books of the Bible with exceptions. But like, let's say you came to church on Sunday and you were having a really hard time with your wife, and you're like, well, I can't believe this jerk. He knows about that we're having a hard time.
Okay, yeah.
But I'm not. We're in Ephesians 6.
Yeah.
So, and then, I think it's good to take in general, to take in the whole counsel of God. And by that, don't get mad at me if you're an Old Testament person, but I'm really focused. I'm a New Testament reader, studier, preacher. Not that I would exclude it. And I know Richard did a great sermon at youth camp about, I can't remember who, something in Genesis. It'll come to me, but and he tied it into Christ.
Yeah.
But anyway, to have it is great to know that submission. Now, this Sunday it should be about children obeying your parents, slaves obeying your masters. I don't want to talk about that.
Yeah, I know. I don't think it's the context is the way we think of it today. Probably. I mean, you could sell yourself into slavery, which just meant that you were what would they call it, bondservant or something like that, or
I don't know. I need to do some more thinking. I do think there's still principles there. Like I'm going to probably compare it to Colossians, where he talks about whatever you do. This is to slaves also in Colossians. Do it with all your heart. So that applies to.
Yeah.
So like, I don't know, when you were working a lot, like I do find myself sometimes at work going, I could probably coast till 5, and I'll tell you this, we're never going to get to the topic, but at the hospital, there's a real rhythm there. So often I work until 8 p.m. Well, there's not a lot of good things to do in visitation from 6 to 8. People they're getting them ready for bed. You can try, but I think the rhythm that the other chaplains have is we're handling emergencies, catching up on email, maybe doing some reading even during that time.
Yeah.
But I always feel weird about that, because most of my life is not, I don't get paid by the hour, but some of my life like, I want to make sure that I'm doing it with all my heart is for the Lord.
Yeah.
And that can be, also can be hard, because we have a kind of a code, I guess. If you have a really 2 or 3 or even one really hard encounter, just don't do anything for a bit. Just so there's isn't that interesting? Like, probably most jobs don't generally get that, where you gotta, maybe they do.
I mean,
recovery time.
Yeah, exactly. But you're not really paid. What are you going to do? Run in place? Just keep busy? I mean,
you could
you're
patrol
there
the halls, I guess. I don't know. Yeah.
For what?
I don't know. Well, like looking for someone crying, or
okay.
I don't know.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
But they tell you that all them, ever since I started to say, you need to make sure that you rest and recover and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I'll probably talk about the principles about what it is to be an employee, and also maybe highlight a little bit that there are still slaves in the world. Even in the U.S., there are secret slaves. There's sex slaves.
Apparently, I've read that there are more slaves now than there were in at the height of slavery.
I read about that a little bit already this week, and it seems like maybe that's true. Well, there's a lot more people, but also
okay, yeah.
But also that some of the ways they're defining slavery, I don't know. I forget. One of them was like, I was like, gosh, it doesn't quite seem. It seems terrible, but well, prison. Are they slaves? If you're working in prison, some people would really say, well, that's slavery. I'm like, well, then I read the 13th Amendment, and it says no one should be forced into work unless they are a slave. There will be no more slavery or indentured servitude, maybe it says, except for prisoners, something like that. So that doesn't seem like it means slavery, but
I mean,
forced work.
You could interpret that if the state owns your labor, as happens in some forms of government, that you are a slave. If you don't own your own labor, that could be considered slavery.
Right.
I mean, New York City comes to mind when I say that. But
why is that?
One of the tenets of socialism is that the state owns your labor. And so you work for the collective and not for yourself.
Okay.
I mean, I could easily define that as slavery, but,
okay.
Yeah,
I don't know. But anyway, we all, I guess all of us have everyone will be able to have feelings about that. So that's something that, like the idea of not being able to have a home or have peace, or to say, this is actually something else Shannon and I talked about, I think this weekend, is people, they do their job with such devotion that it completely wears them out, wrings them out, and they're not able to say no to the demands of their employer.
Really? I happen to know somebody in this room was kind of like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how your experience was?
Not, I couldn't, it's not that I couldn't say no. It's just that I'm so competitive that if I'm presented a challenge, then I'm up for it, basically. Mm-hmm. I mean, honestly, that's what I was known for down there as a workhorse, and that, now I say down there when I worked for corporate, but
now that you're away from it a little bit, do you see it a little differently? That maybe sometimes you were like, well, you enslaved yourself to them sometimes, or
no, I saw that then.
Oh, you did enslave yourself to them.
Yeah.
Okay.
But not really to them, to myself. What my opinion is of what a hard worker should be.
All right. Oh.
Well,
I was thinking a little different, I guess. Let's say that you have, this happens all the time, you have a job and you have 12 responsibilities, and then they give you 13 and 14 and 15. And because you have pride in your work, and because you don't feel like you could easily change jobs, you just keep taking them on. And that won't work for me. I'll be like, well, like all my life I've been like, well, what did you want me not to do? That's just like.
So having said that, literally there was an IT department of 21 people when I first went to Atlanta. When we left, there were 3 of us. Mm-hmm. Same responsibilities. Right. So it is literally exactly what you just said.
Yeah. Did you push back and say, well, what of these 20 things now that I had 13, which do you want me to not do?
And you know what the answer is?
What's that?
Figure it out.
Okay. Well, that's a good answer.
Yeah.
It's better than like you punch them in the face, which is I have a story about that. When I was working up a church and my job was youth ministry. I was also leading music, and there was some conflict around the music part. You might not notice this, but sometimes musicians can be temperamental.
Whoa.
And drama queens.
Whoa.
And me too. So
same here.
So there was some tension there, and I just said to my boss, I said, well, hey, I'm the youth pastor. What if I just don't do that anymore? And that caused a huge, well, you can't do that. And I said, well, let's look at my job description real quick. And there's not.
Okay.
I had actually. It's funny. I make myself. I'm not this clever, and I don't know if I'm misrepresenting. I apologize, but
Okay.
I had asked a couple years before should we put in my job description that I spend about 10, 15 hours a week doing music kind of stuff for church.
Okay.
Like, no, let's not put that in there. You're the youth pastor. And then when I said, well, then I could just not do this because
It's not in there.
it's not even my job. And then there was a freak out
Yeah.
in the other direction. So I wonder, I don't know. I don't feel like I was being petulant in this. I just was trying to say, I need a path forward.
Yeah.
I don't know. And I don't know how right or wrong I was in any of that. I was trying to find a path forward. Right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, so that was an issue is when people, so here's the other thing. So you're loaded on at work, and then you come home and you
got nothing.
You have nothing.
Yeah.
And then I think that's where this veil, this lie that comes over is, I've worked so hard, I deserve, and then you just start saying nonsense.
Yeah.
Because you, I wish Jenny were in here because we were talking about it kind of from a woman's perspective. Is I've raised these kids and now it's my time, and you're like,
Okay.
wow, okay. What if you hadn't given so much of your life to P&G? I didn't mean to say that one. Oh, that's fine, because my father-in-law worked for P&G, so that's not my mother-in-law. She's great. But if you hadn't given all,
Okay.
every hour and every bit of energy to, and they're great. So no one's bad. I'm just saying, if you hadn't given all of that, then maybe you wouldn't feel like you were so used up by kind of a slave master, right? Your job, you could certainly you enslaved. You said you enslaved yourself.
Yeah.
Sometimes
I felt like I was, even at home, I felt like I was on a tether, always. I don't know if you know anything about horses, but never given my head, which is, the ability to throw my head around and run or whatever. I felt like I was I would get calls on vacation. I'd be sitting on the beach and ask questions about, this thing happened and what am I going to do about it?
So many of my friends who are employed, most of my friends who have even just pretty good jobs, that's their life. Yeah. Think of.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm thinking of people in my head that we both know who are close to, but yeah, it's like you're, you said the head tethered. What'd you say? The horse won't give you its head.
That you don't give the horse its head.
Oh.
If you have them on, anybody that knows horses, if you keep, especially if you're moving them, if you tie them so taut that they can't move their head, they'll tear the place apart. You got to give them their head. You got to give them the ability to throw their head around.
Oh, okay.
And I felt like I never had that while I was working. Even in the evenings, I always felt like I was on edge.
Yeah. Wonder what the balance of that is of, being diligent. Like I think of when I was teaching school, the last time I taught school full time, I'm chronically disorganized, and being a school teacher and being disorganized are not good together.
Okay.
And so I would go in almost every day at 5 a.m. I lived across the street from the school.
Oh, okay.
And I would work until 5, and I'd go home and work. I did it for 2 years. Essentially, that was my schedule.
Okay.
With 4 little kids,
Wow.
all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I still couldn't. I just really couldn't get it together. I was very diligent, and I don't think I was enslaved to the school. I really, from about the time I was 21 or so, really wanted to be a good teacher. Mm-hmm. And I worked very hard at it. And I have, I know I get 4 kids, you got bills, you got a house payment, all that stuff. But,
that changes stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So there is this thing about like this reality of like the bills are coming, companies and stuff don't usually reward.
Yeah.
Some companies reward poor work, but thanks Lowe's for that you still exist.
It's funny because it's true.
I was at Target this week looking for one of these things, a quarter zip to wear at the hospital, and I found one. There's no price above it. There's no price on the garment. Is that new? I don't know if that's how things are now. And and I found a worker. I was like, woo! And I said, hey, can you help me figure out how much this costs? She said, there's a machine over there. You just scan it. And so that took me 3 more minutes to figure out where the scanner was and why. There's already. I said, boy, I sure would have liked if you'd have shown me.
Yeah.
Been a really nice employee thing to do.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's.
But we digress.
Yeah. Well, you've been to Lowe's. Is Lowe's?
Oh yeah.
Lowe's. We don't have any.
Well, yeah. And then so I drive from where I live, which is 45 minutes away.
Yeah.
And I get down there, and their inventory online says that they have this item. And the first thing the employee says, well, you should have called first. And I said, so you're saying it's my fault that your inventory's wrong?
Yeah.
So she could have been, what she was saying is true, but that's not the point.
Well, there's a direction to go too, is like, I can totally understand working a lot of places, making minimum wage. The expectations are low.
Oh, of course.
And so when they're done at 5, I'm guessing they don't go home and worry about the lumber, right?
Yeah.
Or
no.
The price of the quarter zip that they're.
Maybe their interactions with people like me, but not with no.
But what's the something in between of being? I think I definitely. I mean, my basically my work is people, and so I can't really righteously put my work down.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
But I can. I guess I just have to. I mostly have to pray about it and say, okay. I wish I could help more than I can, but this is what I have. This is.
I absolutely could not do your job. I could.
Chaplain job or pastor?
Chaplain.
Yeah. I was thinking more of
pastoring. It seems so hard.
It is hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know how they get people to sign up for it.
Yeah.
But just like I think of my job as pastor is what I think of. But like you lay it down and you go, well, I've loved this person. I've had conversation with them. I've prayed for them. I've prayed with them. I've offered support to their family. But
no,
now I need to sleep. and it's like, and none of it in the moment or in the days seem to move anything positive at all. But
I mean, I would be. So, a 4-year-old is tragically lost. What's the words of comfort that you can give?
Well, now you're back to chaplain.
That's what I mean. Yeah,
we haven't lost 4-year-olds. God willing, we won't in the church.
I'm just saying for example.
Right.
Yeah.
There are things you can say, but the chaplain work is everyone seems to agree is about being present. And
okay.
So, kind of like one night at Bible study, the best thing you could have said.
Absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
It would be a great time to say nothing.
Yes. It's often the case that at hospital work that you're just in the room.
Okay.
Now if someone. Yeah, so I think less is better, but also you just have to get a feel for, is this a time to say something or nothing? And
why would God let this happen? Have you ever had that?
Probably.
Okay.
Just don't answer that question.
Okay.
I mean, not in the moment. I don't think
no.
you say.
Yeah.
I mean, I think
that's the question.
For instance, if we were role playing that, I would go.
Yeah.
And look at you and sigh and.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure what we ended up talking about. I was trying to talk about we'll do another one soon on centering on Christ. But we talked about changing our minds and a little bit
slavery.
About slavery,
kind of the underlying theme throughout the whole thing. Slavery to work.
Yeah.
You
know. If you're feeling like you're a slave at work, I'd love to talk and listen to you about that. Mm-hmm. I found that sometimes I'm very assertive, and if you're not very assertive, I may not give you the best counsel, because I would say be more assertive. But I could just listen. Also, that's something we should tell. Would you? I don't know. Are you up for this? For just listening to people?
Yes, absolutely.
It's hard, isn't
it? My nature is to help. So
yeah.
But I am really, really, because I'm married to a woman, and I found that it's love language to listen, not fix. Sometimes fix when you're asked, but that also could be a trap too. So it's complicated.
And also for you, if you're listening to, don't underestimate the gift it is to someone else to listen to them.
Really listen. Not, well, that's a lot like this thing that happened to me, you know.
Yeah. I'm thankful for that discipline of partly work related, but like over the years to go, oh, this is a time where I need to listen.
Yeah.
And I would like to grow in that too, because sometimes I find myself walking away from a conversation, go, oh, I should have just listened, because I can shut them down pretty good sometimes. Conversations that I should have said, oh, really? Tell me more.
Yeah.
Is that one thing that you said you're trying to remember? Tell me more about that?
Yes. For real, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That is not my nature.
That's what I was getting at.
Yeah.
Is like, to just, and I'm not saying your nature, but nature is to go,
My nature is to empathize, and unfortunately share how that relates to something that happened to me, which is just awful sometimes.
Well, yeah, I think this is a big part of chaplain work. So people were talking to you. Part of how you're tracking with someone talking to you is you're connecting it to things in your mind that connect to you. It's like, when my mom got sick, and you can go, oh, I had a mom, but for real, that must be the way it works.
Yeah, it is exactly.
But what chaplaincy education kind of partly teaches you, and just growing up, is just because you're having those thoughts doesn't mean you have to share them. And so then I try to share them when I go, oh, this would be helpful to this person, because sometimes our sharing normalizes your experience. So like, we're in the Lost Our Mom Club now, right?
Yeah.
We both have lost our mom.
Yeah.
And so when my mom passed, I felt, well, at least Mark, I don't know if I remember this feeling or not, but I felt Mark's in the same club. When I say,
actually, I thought the same thing sometimes.
Yeah. So
by the way,
I
had a sub at Hartle's Sub last night.
What does that mean?
That means my mom loves Hartle Subs.
Where are they?
They're in Hagerstown. It almost made me cry.
Yeah.
It's been 6 years.
Yeah.
Almost 6 years.
Well, yep. That's the way it is.
Yeah.
So anyway, be a good listener. We're here to listen. We love you guys.
We do love you guys. If you need prayed for, man, oh man.
Reach out.
Yep, absolutely. We love you.
I'm waving.